Ever since there's been holiday souvenirs, and we all love to bring back a memento of a visit from far-flung places, or even places closer to home. And the continent is no more than a short hop across the English Channel. Passenger ferries have been making that crossing for centuries, and when Floggett visited Kent back in 2007, I fulfilled my schoolboy ambition to visit the bridge of a thoroughly modern ferry. Now that high-speed ferry you can see over my shoulder coming into Boulogne Harbour is going to offload its cargo and passengers, turn straight around and go right back to England. And I'm going to jump aboard and meet up with the skipper, Captain Nick Dunn, and he's going to show me how to navigate back to Dover. How exciting is that? Nick, this is a stunning bridge. Can you talk me through what each crew member's doing up here?
Yeah, sure. It's basically a three-man team. The captain sits in the middle. He's obviously overall in command. He's conning the vessel, and he acts during the passage as part of the navigation team, supported on his right-hand side by the chief officer, who is the principal navigator.
Okay.
And then to his left is the chief engineer, who forms part of the bridge team, which is unique on high-speed craft. Obviously, normally chief engineers are in the engine rooms. He's up here, and all the engine room monitoring equipment is electronic, so he can take readouts of levels, temperatures, pressures, etc., all from the equipment there.
Stressful job. I mean, it's a foggy day today, isn't it? You can't see much out there.
Yeah, this is very much with the speed of the craft when the intensity of the job really comes into its own.
Talk me through some of the efficiencies of the design.
The craft were developed basically as wave-piercing catamarans, was their original designation. The idea being you have two hulls, catamaran formation, with a very slim and zero buoyant bow. Now, the idea being, as you encounter seas, that will actually not ride up like a conventional hull, it'll pierce through it.
Yeah.
And in order to counter that and to avoid damage, you then have a major centre hull, which is suspended above the water as reserve buoyancy, so that if there's a larger wave, it then will lift on that centre hull.
I've got you.
So it gives a more efficient shape through the water for high speed.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this is high-tech spec, isn't it? You've got satellite navigation, GPS, yet we've just heard the foghorn, which is very primitive, very basic, going on all around us. Is that to let other vessels know that you're around as well?
It is, and it's very typical of the marine environment. We are still bounded by regulations that hark back donkey's years and apply generically. But it must always be borne in mind as a mariner. You can't beat your eyes, your experience, your senses, and the very basic systems which are non-fallible. And if you stick with those principles and use the electronic aids to assist you, you can't go far wrong.
No. The crossing takes about, what, 3/4 of an hour precisely?
The pier to pier is about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
The vessel is set on autopilot, so it's steering the course that is requested by the master. So all three of the navigation team are concentrating on monitoring the shipping situation, because primarily here it's not getting from A to B, it's avoiding what's between A and B.
And there's a lot out there. This is the busiest shipping lane in the world.
It can be very intense. It can be extremely intense. But at the end of the day, the navigators are looking well in advance, maybe up to 12 miles or more, watching the relative movement of the groups of vessels or singular vessels, so it's very much forward planning.
Even with today's fog, the experience of the crew and the electronic aids make the trip very safe. However, years ago, things would have been done very differently. Chief Officer Simon Bound tells us more about traditional navigation techniques. Hi, Simon.
Hello there, Paul.
Looks like the weather's brightening up.
Indeed it has.
Even though the foghorn's still going.
Indeed.
Now, this looks like an 18th century map.
It is, yes. It's a map of the Goodwin Sands, just off Deal.
OK, so what are you looking at? How would you navigate your way into Deal looking at this map?
Transit. Basically, they've taken 2 points ashore, like two churches, lined them up, so that you can then look and see that you're on that line.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So you could have a church and a lighthouse, and you line them up.
Indeed.
You get them in line, and you follow that line.
But all you're getting there is a position line. You have to have two. And when they cross, you'll know where you are.
So what happens if you are literally in the middle of nowhere and you're miles away from land? How can you tell where you are?
Well, this thing, the sextant, was used for hundreds of years and still is used on ships. When I first went to sea, This was the primary means of navigation.
And you can still use that, can't
Of course, and I use it daily.
you? Do you really?
No. It's been under the bed for many years now.
Got me.
Yeah.
OK, talk me through that. Come on, set it up.
Well, basically, all this does is measure the angle between the horizon and an object in the sky, i.e. the sun, the moon, or stars. And by calculation, you can work out a position line.
Yeah.
So you work out the latitude and longitude from there.
And I guess another very essential piece of kit has got to be the compass.
Indeed it is. I mean, without the compass, you wouldn't know where you were. You couldn't take, if you can't use the sextant for several days due to fog or whatever, you still have your compass, you know what heading you're making, and you need to know your speed as well.
Gosh, they were still very vulnerable back in the 18th century, weren't they?
Well, they were indeed. Thankfully, these days, with invention of radar and, of course, GPS, things are much easier. We know where we are at all times, and it's accurate to a few feet.
Which is incredible.
It is absolutely incredible. It makes our life very easy now.
Yeah.
So it does take the shine out of the job. It's not so much fun.
Well, they say the old ways are the best, but clearly great things happen when old and new work together.